On my baby shower, my family never showed up. Confused, I texted my mom, and she replied casually, "Oh, we forgot. We're at Uncle Ben's watching the game." That one sentence shattered something in me. I'd sent invitations 6 weeks in advance. I'd arranged cute pink lanterns in the backyard, each one swaying gently in the breeze. I'd spent money we didn't really have on catered finger foods, vanilla cupcakes and matching tablecloths. I wanted everything perfect. It was my first baby, the first grandchild. Finally, I thought, maybe they'd see me, celebrate me, even for just one afternoon. My mother had actually said she was proud of me. It felt like a small miracle, so I believed her. As the day arrived, I tried to ignore the creeping dread that something would go wrong. I should have known. They'd always favored my brother. Still, I convinced myself this time would be different. At 1 p.m., the cake was front and center. By 2, my excitement was turning into panic. By 3, it was just me, my friend from next door, and 24 empty chairs. The worst part? No texts, no calls, just silence. And then Mom's reply, "They forgot." I stood there in my mom-to-be sash, feeling it dig into my shoulder. Tiny pink balloons hovered above the empty seats, bobbing around like they had more life than this entire party. My neighbor Sharon looked at me with sad eyes. "Are you okay?" She whispered, like I might shatter if she spoke too loud. I just nodded. "I'm fine," I lied, throat burning. By 1:45, I was glancing at my phone every 2 minutes. Texts, nothing. It was stuck on silent disappointment. By 2:12, I sent a family group chat message. "ETA?" No one answered. The punch started separating into pink foam and fruit pulp. The cheese platter looked sweaty. My big adorable baby bump sign was fluttering in the wind, mocking me. 3 came. Then 3:10. I felt like the air was being sucked from my lungs. One by one, the balloons drifted lower, losing helium and hope. It felt so personal and yet so typical of them at the same time. I tried to keep my tears in check. I was in the middle of a party that wasn't really happening, surrounded by decorations and the echo of my own heartbeat. No family, no excuses, just emptiness. At 3:16, I tried Mom directly. "Hey, is everything okay?" No one's here. My fingers were shaking, not from anger, but from a hurt so deep it felt impossible to describe. 10 minutes later, she replied, "Oh no, we forgot that was today. We're all at your uncle's watching football. Your brother really wanted to see the game. Sorry." My stomach turned ice cold. How could they just forget? I read it twice, maybe 3 times, half expecting it to change into something more believable, or at least more considerate. But it didn't. A regular season game was more important than my first baby shower, my first real moment to feel celebrated in this family. Mom didn't even bother pretending there was an emergency. No car trouble, no traffic jam, just, "We forgot. Your brother wanted to watch the game." I stared at the text. I swear I felt something in me crack. My neighbor placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, but I couldn't feel it. My emotions were caught somewhere between furious and numb. It felt cycling through heartbreak like a broken record. I kept rereading that simple, devastating text. Tears finally pooled, but I blinked them away. I couldn't cry, not yet. It was like my body decided to freeze every emotion, storing them up for later. So I just stood there, a plastic cup in my hand with half-melted ice cubes. The backyard looked pathetic. A beautiful photo backdrop that no one would use. A homemade banner that said, "It's a girl," still taped to the fence. Sharon gently offered, "Let's eat some cake?" Maybe she thought sugar would fix the situation. I shook my head. I couldn't taste anything right now if I tried. Inside, the house felt eerily quiet. I swear the decorations judged me as I walked by, like they were saying, this was a bad idea. Eventually, Sharon helped me pack up the leftovers. We neatly stacked sealed containers of food nobody touched. My phone buzzed from time to time, random notifications that had nothing to do with my missing family. The world was moving on while I stood still, feeling out of place in my own home. And still, no new text from Mom. Nothing from Dad or my sister. The numbness remained. I told Sharon I was fine and thanked her for helping. But deep down I felt myself slowly unraveling. I guess a part of me wasn't entirely shocked. For some reason, my brother was always the star of the family. The house lit up when he walked in. Laughter, attention, even the dog jumping around him. I was the quiet one, the backup singer in my own childhood. In 2nd grade, I made a whole picture book for Mom. My teacher said it was special. Illustrations of me and my family under rainbow skies. I was so proud. But it got tossed in a drawer and never mentioned again. The day my brother brought home a single goldfish, they gave it a name, a special bowl, even a cozy spot on the mantel. Birthdays were always overshadowed by my brother's bigger, louder achievements. The day I turned 16, Dad was too busy helping my brother practice for football tryouts. Mom forgot to order the birthday cake. I remember she offered me a half-eaten pie from the fridge. It wasn't hateful. It felt more like I was invisible. I learned to say, "It's fine, I understand." I even meant it for a while, but this baby shower thing stung deeper. This was my moment, or it should have been. I was done being invisible. The baby shower ended without really beginning. One by one, I peeled off decorations, the gold baby girl letters, the streamers I'd hung with so much hope. Then I sat at the kitchen table, sliding out a knife to cut the cake I'd spent hours baking. Lemon cake with raspberry filling, Mom's favorite flavors. Funny, right? I guess I was still trying to impress her, even at this stage in my life. The first bite tasted like sweet air. No real flavor, just bland disappointment. I forced another bite, hoping maybe I'd taste something good, but it was pointless. My husband was away working offshore. It was his last month at the job. He was going to find something more stable because of the baby. I'd told him how excited I was for this shower. He'd sounded so happy, wishing so bad that he could be there with me, but I understood. Now I just wanted him here, next to me, hugging me in that strong way only he can. I opened my laptop and typed him an email. It felt safer than trying to talk on the phone, less chance of my voice cracking. I told him everything, how everyone bailed, how small I felt, how lonely the house was. Then I hit send. I remember the day I met my husband. It was at a dingy waiting area at the mechanic shop. He walked in, dirty from work, sunburned, and munching on sunflower seeds. I was annoyed because the vending machine stole my dollar. He grinned at me. "Looks like you lost to the machine," he joked, offering me a sip of his soda. It felt oddly comfortable, like I'd known him forever. From that day on, he never once made me feel invisible. He remembered everything I said. My favorite color, my weird sense of humor, even the time I offhandedly mentioned I loved stargazing. He once drove me an hour out of town so we could lie on the hood of his truck to watch meteor showers. We got married under an ancient oak tree at my aunt's place. Small ceremony, hardly any fuss. On our wedding day, he held me close and whispered, "I see you, always." When we found out I was pregnant, he called my belly his girls, even before we knew for sure it was a girl. He was sure. And I fell deeper in love. After I had rested a bit, I started cleaning up the backyard alone. My ankles ached, my back was throbbing, and my belly felt heavier than ever. The late afternoon sun drifted behind our fence, painting the sky a dull pink, the same color as the deflated balloons. I dragged the trash bags to the curb, ignoring the tight pain in my lower back. The house was suffocatingly quiet when I went inside, not warm or comforting, just empty. I tried turning on some music, but it only made the silence more obvious. I wasn't hungry, but I made toast just to do something. I spread butter without tasting it and left it untouched on a plate. Then I started folding already folded laundry, mindlessly trying to keep my hands busy so I wouldn't think about how hurt I was. I checked my phone. 0 new messages. Not a single apology from Mom, Dad, or my sister. I guess they were still at Uncle Ben's, laughing about the game, feeling 0 guilt. Finally, I let myself sink onto the couch. I pressed a hand against my belly, feeling my baby move. She was restless, or maybe that was my heart. A soft ping woke me in the middle of the night. I rubbed my eyes and squinted at my phone. One new email from my husband. "Baby," it began, "I'm so sorry. My heart broke reading your message." He told me he couldn't believe they'd treat me like that. How he'd have marched over to Uncle Ben's and dragged them all out by the ears if he'd been home. I smiled through tears, imagining his righteous anger. He said, "When I get back, we'll throw our own celebration. Just me, you, and our girl. I'll bake a cake that'll probably look horrible, but you'll pretend it's delicious. Then we'll dance in the living room. We'll make our own happiness." I clutched the phone to my chest, letting his words sink in. For the first time that day, I felt safe enough to cry. I cried so hard my shoulders shook, but they were tears of relief, of love. Then, strangely at peace, I fell back asleep with my phone still in my hand, imagining the day he'd come home and hold me. That image was all I needed to quiet the ache in my heart. Early the next morning, I woke up to scroll through Facebook, just mindlessly passing time until my doctor's appointment. And there it was, posted 2 hours ago. Family night at Uncle Ben's. Nothing better than unexpected get-togethers. My stomach twisted. I tapped on the photos. 23 images of Mom, Dad, my sister, Aunt Linda, and of course my brother, front and center. They were smiling, holding beers and hot dogs, cheering for some highlight on the TV. The caption read, "We forgot how fun it is to be together, just us." My name was nowhere. My baby shower wasn't mentioned. It was like I didn't exist. Each click burned a deeper hole in my chest. They had the nerve to call it a spontaneous family night, proudly announcing their unity. The final photo was my mother beaming with a big grin, surrounded by everyone, hugging Uncle Ben. The timestamp matched exactly when I was sitting alone with a wilted cake, waiting for them to arrive. I dropped my phone onto the couch. An ugly wave of hurt washed over me. How could they flaunt it so publicly? How could they call it family time without me? I felt more alone than ever. On the kitchen counter, I kept a planner with crucial dates, doctor visits, due date reminders, and a big section labeled Delivery Day visitors. I'd written down every family member, thinking they'd want to be there when my daughter was born. I opened it now, flipping to that page. My mother's name, Dad's, my sister's, a few aunts and cousins. I stared at each name, recalling how excited I used to be. Then, slowly, I drew a line through every single one. It felt like crossing out old hopes I'd carried around since childhood. When I finished, the page looked almost blank. The only name left was my husband's. Next to it, I scrawled a small heart, a reminder of who truly mattered. I closed the planner and slid it into a drawer, forcing myself not to cry. I didn't want to give them any more tears. This was my baby's birth we were talking about. She deserved positivity, not leftover resentment. Then I made myself tea, sipped it in the quiet kitchen, and promised never to let them hurt me this way again. My baby girl would see that I learned how to stand up for us both. A few days later, I heard a thump on the front porch. When I opened the door, a plain cardboard box sat there with my name scrawled in black marker. Inside, I found a pink stuffed bear holding a cheap plastic heart that said, "It's a girl." My chest tightened. Tucked beneath it was a small greeting card with a single line. "So excited for you. Love, the fam." No actual signatures, no mention of the baby shower. Just a half-baked attempt to say, "We did something nice, so we're off the hook, right?" I sat the bear on the floor, staring at its lifeless plastic eyes. My first impulse was to throw it out. Instead, I sealed it in a paper bag, scribbling donation on the front. I placed it in the back of the closet behind old winter scarves, deciding I'd deal with it later. The entire thing felt like an insult. If they really cared, they would have shown up. They would have apologized. A stuffed bear wasn't going to fix the hole they'd left in my heart. I exhaled, closed the box, and shoved it aside. An old memory replayed in my mind that night, my high school piano recital at 15. I'd practiced Claire de Lune relentlessly, convinced I could make Mom and Dad proud. My teacher said I had a gift, something special in my touch. The evening of the performance, I glanced at the audience from behind the curtains. My parents' seats were empty. I felt a rush of cold dread. Then my name was called, and I had to walk on stage anyway. Under the spotlight, my fingers trembled on the keys. Afterward, I rode the bus home in my recital dress, the program still clutched in my hands like proof I'd done something important. When I opened the front door, Mom and Dad were unloading Disneyland souvenirs from plastic bags. They'd taken my brother on a last-minute trip. "Oh, sweetie," Mom said, barely glancing at me. "We forgot tonight was your recital. You'll have another one, right?" I never signed up for another recital. The disappointment hurt too much. My teacher begged me to continue, but I was done letting them stand me up. I couldn't forget that sinking feeling. And now, years later, they'd done it again, only bigger. That evening, I found myself in the baby's nursery. It still smelled of fresh paint. The crib was half-assembled, leaning against the wall like an unfinished promise. I traced my fingertips over the wood, imagining my daughter's tiny hands gripping the rails one day. "We'll figure it out, you and me," I whispered. My voice echoed off the pastel walls. It felt a bit silly talking to my bump, but I kept going. "You'll never feel forgotten. I promise. A stack of storybooks waited on a shelf nearby, gifts from my best friend. I picked up a colorful one about a brave little rabbit exploring the world. I settled into the rocking chair and began reading aloud, my voice soft in the quiet room. I remembered being a kid, desperately wishing someone would read to me. My mother was always too busy, my father too tired, and my brother too important, so I clung to the library like a lifeline. Now as I read, I felt my daughter move, a gentle flutter inside me. It felt hopeful, like a tiny affirmation that she already trusted my voice. Just us. That phrase both comforted me and broke my heart a little. 2 weeks later, my husband returned from offshore earlier than expected. He practically swept me off my feet the moment he came through the door, hugging me so tight my ribs ached. "We're redoing your baby shower," he announced, his eyes shining with determination. This time, we kept it small, just the people who had truly been there for me. Friends from my job, Sharon the neighbor, my old piano teacher, she'd stayed in touch all these years, and even a coworker of my husband's who had become a close friend. We gathered in our cozy living room. No elaborate banners or centerpieces, just small bouquets of flowers on the table. My husband insisted on baking the cake himself, a chocolate mess that somehow looked both burnt and undercooked in places. I loved it anyway. There was laughter, real conversation, and enough love in the room to make up for every disappointment I'd felt before. Nobody was there out of obligation or family duty. They came because they cared. I felt genuine joy for the first time in weeks. As I cut into that imperfect cake, I realized I was actually savoring its taste. A sweet relief. A few days after our intimate shower, photos popped up on social media. I had posted a few pictures, me with a chocolate-smudged grin, friends hugging my belly, and a short caption, "Baby girl, already so loved." It didn't take long for my family to see them. My phone buzzed relentlessly one morning, lighting up with messages from unknown numbers. I'd blocked most of them, but apparently they found new ways to reach me. My mother's voicemail was shaky and cold. "So, you had another shower without us? We're your family. How could you leave us out?" Then my sister's text appeared. "Wow, real nice. Guess we know where we stand. Thanks for nothing." There was zero mention of the fact they had ditched the first party. No apologies, no reflection on how they might have caused this. Just outrage and accusations, as if I had committed some huge betrayal. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. Part of me expected them to at least say, "We're sorry for missing your first shower." Instead, they acted like victims, like I was the villain for not inviting them to the second one. I put the phone down, exhausted by their nerve. I was sitting on our couch, still shaken by their messages, when my husband quietly took my phone from my hand. His warm fingers brushed mine, and he simply said, "Enough." He stepped onto our front porch and dialed my mom's number. I stayed inside, listening through the open door. "Mrs. Green," he started, using a polite tone that trembled with anger. "Please stop harassing my wife. She's pregnant and doesn't need this stress." I heard a muffled voice on the other end. My husband continued, "No, this isn't her fault. You abandoned her at her own shower, remember? You can't blame her for celebrating with people who actually showed up." My chest tightened. This was the first time anyone had confronted my mother like that. He paused, then added, "She isn't shutting you out. You shut yourselves out. Now you're mad because she didn't wait around for more disappointment. Leave her alone unless you're ready to say, 'I'm sorry,' and mean it." His voice was firm, unwavering, and it made me feel more seen than I ever had before. Then he hung up, blocked their numbers, and walked inside. "Breathe," he whispered, wrapping me in a hug. My daughter arrived on a stormy Wednesday morning. The hospital room windows rattled with thunder, but inside, all I heard was her first soft cry. I held her gently, tears streaming down my cheeks, feeling love expand in my chest like a sunrise breaking over everything dark. I was exhausted, sweaty, and sore, but none of that mattered the moment I kissed her tiny forehead. My husband sat next to me, eyes red with tears, whispering, "She's perfect, baby." 2 days later, my parents showed up unannounced. They barely knocked before entering my hospital room. My mother gave a stiff smile and asked, "Where's my granddaughter?" She said it so casually, like we were on normal terms. They each held her for a few seconds, looking uncomfortable and distant, as if they were meeting a stranger's child. Then they placed her back in my arms, didn't ask how I felt, didn't mention the labor or how I was healing. It was surreal. They stayed for exactly 12 minutes. No real apologies, no heartfelt words, and then they left. I remember staring at the closed door, my newborn in my arms, deciding I would never let them hurt her like they'd hurt me. 3 months passed, filled with sleepless nights and the sweetest baby giggles. My husband and I packed our small apartment, loading boxes into a rental truck. We decided on a fresh start, 2 cities away. A job opportunity for him had popped up, and it felt like fate. We didn't invite my parents to help. We told few people. Early one morning, we strapped our daughter into her car seat, gently kissed her head, and started the engine. The road stretched out ahead of us like a promise. No farewell dinner, no long goodbyes. I felt a pang of sadness, but it was overshadowed by relief. I was tired of living so close to people who didn't show up for me. As we pulled onto the highway, I watched the old city shrink in the rearview mirror. A subtle weight lifted off my chest, replaced by cautious hope. My daughter cooed in the back seat, and my husband reached over to squeeze my hand. We sang silly songs to keep her calm. The wind whipped through the windows, carrying away old baggage. I breathed in the newness, letting the past drift behind us like dust on the road. We settled into our new home with fresh paint and secondhand furniture, gradually building our own little paradise. My daughter learned to roll over on the living room rug. She giggled at her reflection in the big mirror we hung near the dining table. Life felt calm, even joyful. One evening, I got a call from my cousin Lacey, who I'd always liked. She hesitated before saying, "I'm not sure if you've heard, but your brother's in trouble, big trouble." She explained he'd run up massive debts in mom and dad's names, credit cards, personal loans, even forging signatures for a fancy car. He used the money for online gambling, expensive electronics, and some dubious crypto investments. When the bills came due, he vanished. A week later, he was arrested in another state. My parents were devastated. Their bank accounts were frozen, their house was on the line, and they were drowning in legal fees. All because the golden child had never been told no in his life. I sat there stunned. Part of me felt sorry for them. Part of me felt nothing at all. After everything, was it wrong that I felt a tiny bit validated? It started with a single email, sent to an old address I rarely used. "We need to talk. Please." Then more followed, each one sounding more desperate than the last. "We're sorry. We're in trouble. Or we just want to see our granddaughter. Please pick up." Apparently, my mother realized they didn't have my current number. They didn't know our new address. I kept it that way. A friend told me she'd seen Mom on Facebook, begging people for my contact info. Some were suspicious, some probably caved. They'd lost almost everything, Lacey said. Their savings were gone, and the mortgage was behind. My brother's fines and legal mess were in the tens of thousands. They were searching for any lifeline, any way to reconnect. Suddenly, I was the good child, the stable one with a steady husband and a bright future. I ignored the emails. My parents had shut me out emotionally for so long, and now they expected me to rescue them? I needed time to think. I wasn't heartless, but I wasn't willing to burn myself again for people who chose to forget me at my own baby shower. For the first time, they didn't know how to reach me. 6 years passed in what felt like a blink. My daughter, Mila, was a force of nature. Joyful, inquisitive, always humming little tunes under her breath. She loved dancing around the living room, wearing mismatched socks and princess pajamas. I'd laugh, recording every silly move, proud of how free she was. We'd found a sweet rhythm in our new city. My husband worked at a local engineering firm, coming home every night in time for bedtime stories. I'd left my old administrative job and started working part-time as a freelance writer so I could be there for Mila's every milestone. Our weekends were simple but perfect. Pancake breakfasts, trips to the park, rummaging through thrift shops for hidden treasures. I didn't miss my old life. I'd made new friends and built a support system that respected me. Occasionally, I'd hear updates about my parents through random relatives. They were still paying off debts, and my brother had come and gone from various correctional programs. I tried not to think about it too much. Watching Mila spin in the yard, shrieking with laughter, I felt something warm bloom in my chest. She'd never have to doubt my love, not for a second. One chilly October afternoon, I opened an email that slipped past my filters. The subject line read, "We miss you. Please forgive us." My heart pounded as I read. "We've lost nearly everything. Your brother was arrested again. We had to sell the house. We're living in a small apartment, and we just feel so alone. We'd love to see you and meet our granddaughter. We don't expect anything. We're just desperate. We swear we've changed." I stared at those words, unsure how to respond. A lump formed in my throat. I remembered the baby shower they never came to, the piano recital, the missed birthdays, their casual disregard. Yet a part of me felt sorry for them, imagining them in a cramped apartment, probably feeling abandoned and scared. My husband found me still sitting there, reading the email over and over. He rested a hand on my shoulder, silent but supportive. For weeks I did nothing. I let their words sit, uncertain whether they meant what they said or just needed a bailout. But they didn't ask for money, only contact. It was complicated, stirring up old wounds and new questions. I felt torn, but I knew my daughter's best interest mattered most. Eventually, I wrote back with a short message. "I'm willing to arrange visits with Mila once a month at my home, supervised by me. If you're late or disrespectful, this ends immediately. No flowery language, no 'I miss you,' no 'I love you.' Just terms." Within an hour, they replied with a flood of gratitude. "Thank you. We promise not to let you down. We just want to be part of your lives." The first visit arrived on a gray Saturday afternoon. Mom and Dad knocked tentatively. Mila peered out from behind my leg, curious about these older strangers. They sat stiffly on our couch, offered awkward smiles, and tried small talk that fizzled out. Mila showed them her crayons, her favorite stuffed unicorn, then went back to coloring at the coffee table. They watched her, eyes sad and full of longing, but didn't push for a hug or cuddle. They left after 20 minutes, thanking me on their way out. When the door closed, I exhaled. It felt surreal, allowing them to meet my child, but staying guarded. They weren't forgiven exactly. It was more like they'd been put on probation, and that was enough for now. Standing in my living room after that visit, I felt the weight of my entire journey settle in my chest. I used to chase my parents' attention, craving any tiny scrap of approval, and now here they were, asking for entry into a life I'd built without them. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt peaceful, like I finally understood something. Family isn't just the people you share DNA with, it's the ones who show up, who listen, who encourage you without being asked. I thought about the baby shower that never happened and the second one that did. The difference was night and day. One was built on forced obligations. The other was formed by genuine support. That's how I want Mila to grow up, surrounded by those who choose her, not out of duty, but out of love. Sometimes forgiveness means letting people back into your life. Other times, it means setting boundaries so they can't keep hurting you. I found my version of forgiveness in that monthly visit, a crack in the door that let them see their granddaughter but never again walk all over me. And in that balance I finally felt free, truly seen, truly loved, and truly alive.